This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Tuesday morning. It's April 16th. And on today's show, we're going to start sort of sinking our teeth into this Wolves-Suns first round matchup. A day has passed since the Wolves lost to Phoenix for a third time during the regular season. And with that time, maybe we've got away from the Suns, and we could sort of cooler heads talk about how the Wolves can avoid that trend going forward. If you're new to the show for the playoffs, how this show works is each episode I try to have on a different reporter or columnist or podcaster from the Wolves beat or Wolves media world. And on Tuesdays, we typically have on Wolves beat writer Jace Frederick from the St. Paul Pioneer Press. We have him here today. What's up, Jace?
Not much, man. I'm usually on Wednesdays, which
middle of the week.
Yeah. I just want it out there because I see people's tweets and I know I'm supposed to get a haircut, and I want everybody to know that I had a haircut scheduled for Wednesday morning, and I was like, there on top of it, it'll be before the podcast, and then Sunday, Dan's like, can you do Tuesday instead? And I'm like, well, there goes that plan. Okay, sounds good. Sure, whatever. Anything for this podcast. Here we go.
Why? What are you listening to people for, man?
I value everybody's input.
Okay. Okay. So for this episode, I think the obvious place to sort of start digging into this is with Cat and Ant. I actually do you agree with that? Like when I was just putting this together, I was like, what do we need to look at first in this, or with your writing or whatever, how are you thinking about this series? Does it start with Cat and Ant too? Are you on the same page there?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything starts with Cat and Ant because even if we're not just talking raw numbers, they got to score 30 points each or whatever, how they play is very much dictates how this entire team can play and what you do. It literally, what they decide to do definitely determines what Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, what everybody else can do. So yeah, I do think that everything always does kind of start and end with those guys.
Yeah, so I don't want to only talk about Cat and Ant. I think the title of this episode will be something Wolves, Cat and Ant versus Phoenix, but it does. I that's how I see it too. Kind of trickles down. I do want to talk a little bit about Gobert and Mike Conley later on here, but let's start with Cat in particular. And just kind of look at it one side of the ball or the other. You want to choose offense or defense?
Well, we can start with the defense. I think that's probably the most intriguing, or maybe the most problematic. The biggest thing to solve.
Right. I think so. If listeners, if you did not watch the game on Sunday or haven't seen the Wolves play the Suns this season. Part of the defensive issue here with Cat is, of course, not wanting to put him on Kevin Durant, which that's fine. That's not some massive indictment of Karl. A lot of people his size or Kevin Durant's size, cannot guard Kevin Durant, and they're going to make an adjustment accordingly there. But I almost that one's straight up apparent to me. Anybody, we would know that. It starts with, kind of moving on from that. Maybe we could talk about situationally Cat guarding Durant, but what we've learned from these two matchups against Phoenix in the last 2 weeks is they don't want to put Cat on him there, or they don't want to put Naz. They don't want to put a big on Durant. They want to put Ant on him, which now that Cat's back, that puts him on Grayson Allen, which I thought, created almost just as many problems, just in a new sort of different way. Cat is now in, he's in the role of chasing the shooter. What do you think about that, the Allen part of it specifically?
Yeah, so I know you had this somewhere farther down in the doc, but why are the Wolves successful against the Clippers and not Phoenix? And I think this kind of starts playing into it right here in that the Clippers play a lot of isolation basketball, and it's they have their big three guys, but they're often just playing okay, I have it here on the wing, I'm going to go one-on-one. Phoenix, and then that just kind of plays in the Minnesota of okay, yeah, you take Ant one-on-one, take Nikhil one-on-one, take Jaden one-on-one, that's fine. Phoenix just has more ball movement. It always starts with Booker. Maybe there's an action there, but it generally springs into more ball movement. Maybe it can get sticky with KD, but otherwise it really doesn't. And if they feel like Grayson Allen has the mismatch, they're comfortable with Grayson Allen being their leading scorer that night. We've seen that from them in various games this season. And then there's just so much it was a lot of good cutting. Grayson Allen is I catch it in the corner. Cat's charging out at me. he'll like get off of it and it'll be like a quick give and go or something to that effect. So I just think there's so much more creative and have so much more movement in their offense that it gets Minnesota scrambling a lot more than like the Clippers can do when the Clippers get into like straight, we're just going to go right at you mano a mano. And that plays into Minnesota's strengths where this, like, if you can get Minnesota really rotating with Cat having to do a lot of it, like that's troublesome. So I don't know what the solution is for that. Frankly, I don't know if you have any answers on like just specifically like if you're going to put Cat on Grayson Allen, like I'm not sure what the obvious answer for that is, other than hoping like that's just our best option is making Grayson Allen beat us for somebody else.
Yeah, I think there's conversations to be had about like not doing this as the matchup at all, and there's arguments to be made that you just put Cat on KD and you kind of live with that too.
I think that's where I would go.
Okay.
Frankly. Just because KD plays a little bit more isolation basketball, like like he'll get good looks for sure, but like Cat will do his best to stay in front of him, and I think it makes it the least complicated for Cat, like as far as guarding anybody else.
I was rewatching the Sunday game on Monday, and Phoenix got to KD guarded by Cat a couple times in the third quarter.
Yeah,
and it was immediately clear. It was like the right side, and I don't know if it was Eubanks or Allen or somebody, and it was like, all right, we're just going to do that, kind of like
but then
when
it just ended in like an 18-footer though, right? Like if I recall,
I was gonna say like it didn't work, but it becomes the question of like, are you cool with that for 7 games or for the majority of that? And I'm just for the record, I'm not against that either. Like I think that might ultimately end up being, if you do want to go with 2 bigs, Rudy and Cat out there against Phoenix's starters, you might just need to play that way. But that's not how they matched up on Sunday, which I guess isn't necessarily an indication of how they're going to match up on Saturday.
Right.
But I think it's a place to start. And with the Allen one, to your point, Allen has been great in these last 2 games. And I think what happens sometimes is when a player is having such a good 3-point shooting season from a percentage standpoint and volume standpoint, like Allen is, they kind of get labeled as a one skill player. Like I feel like I've seen that a lot of time, or actually when Allen signed that extension yesterday, or a couple days ago.
Yesterday.
Yesterday. That's crazy. See some people like, 4 years, 70 million for a guy who could just shooting variants, and I hadn't really peeled back any sort of stats on the Suns that much during the season, but I'm thinking, the 10, 15 Suns games I've watched this season, I'm like, that I don't think of Grayson Allen as just like a shooter. And so I was looking at it a little bit yesterday. Not that he's like a high volume pick and roll player, but of the 191 players in the league to have taken over 50 shots out of pick and rolls this season, Grayson Allen has the second best efficiency in pick and roll as a scorer this season. It's a hair better than Shea and Giannis. Obviously, Shea and Giannis are doing it on a much on much more volume, but he's been effective there. You look at drives, like Grayson Allen gets to the basket a lot on drives. It's obviously the big 3 guys drive the most for that Phoenix team, but Allen's kind of right up there, right below. Like it's not just like a pump and go sort of thing. It's almost like a catch, and I know you're coming to close out on me, and I'm going to attack that. And for Karl, that can be hard, being having the body of a center to both get out to contest that shot while also being aware enough to move his feet. So I think this matchup, Cat on Allen in particular, might be just as problematic, but in a different way than the KD one is. And that might just get us to kind of either fall into Cat on KD, or, which I think a lot of people, just out there watching want to see, is breaking up the Rudy and Cat minutes again when the big 3 for Phoenix is out there. But I really think the Allen is not a hiding spot, whether it's for Cat or anybody in this matchup.
Yeah, I agree. And that's like the Minnesota's defense has been at its very best this year when there is somebody to hide. And oftentimes it's like it can either be for Karl or it can often be for like Rudy to let him be a rover. and that's one of the things that Phoenix gives them trouble is that there is no place to do that. There's nobody that you can do that with anybody
in the starting lineup.
Correct.
Yep.
And that's where like,
stuff
and
like that.
yeah, and that's the challenge with like splitting up Gobert and Towns is that it would have to be to start the game.
Yeah.
It's not just like even like a short stint, pull somebody after 3 or 4 minutes. It's like, well, you might be down 10-2. Like it's been starts of games that have been brutal for Minnesota against Phoenix's starting five. Like it would have to be a big shift and like, nope, you're not going to start this game. You're going to play a lot or whatever. It's just going to be in shifts and it's not going to be start the game. And somebody's ego is going to get bruised there. But that's kind of what's required, like you talk about what you need from Ant and Cat. Like Cat said some stuff like, hey, we got a bunch after the game Sunday. Like we got a bunch of guys we're willing to do whatever it takes. Guys are willing to do whatever it takes to bring this city wins and playoff wins and stuff. And it might be like not starting. I don't know if that'll be the case. I often don't think I'll probably ask Finch this week, but like you often don't see seismic shifts in strategy and rotation in game one of a series.
Yep.
But is that different when you just played a team on Sunday?
That's
That's
a good point. Yeah.
You're reacting to what you just did. Where oftentimes like a game two might be where people are like, all right, yeah, game one didn't work. We do have to shift.
I mean, how many times have you and I texted about that watching other series?
Yeah.
Being like, you've been like, I guarantee whoever is not going to be starting by game 5. I mean, it's looking like it's one of those series right now as we sit here. At the same time, I guess your best basketball can be played with your best group out there, so you don't maybe want to fold into that right away. But it's sort of a dangerous balance. I'm more side with the Taylor Jenkins thing he did against the Wolves 2 years ago in the playoffs, where it's like, we think this is likely the plug we're going to have to pull at some point. Let's take Steven Adams out of the game.
If you remember, though, that was like, so he played Steven Adams game 1 a lot. Cat and Ant both went off. And then game 2, he again started Steven Adams. And Steven Adams picked up 2 fouls in like the first 3 minutes. Without that, and then Memphis blew out Minnesota the rest of that game.
Tillman, right?
Yeah, with Tillman. So I don't know how quick that adjustment would have been had Steven Adams not gotten in super quick foul trouble in game 2. And then, credit to them. Like Steven Adams didn't see the court the rest of the series,
right.
But they were kind of forced into that adjustment. And maybe that, I don't know. And the thing that's so complicated about this is totally like Cat, Rudy, like those are not Steven Adams.
No.
Steven Adams was a bona fide starter on that team, but like not like a max player. That's what's so weird about this. Then they're just like a couple teams where we could have identified this early in the season of like Sacramento at full strength, Phoenix here, like teams where you can't hide somebody, where it is like this is where it gets a little bit tougher, and this is where maybe you do have to lean into more of your wing defenders. But like that is the biggest thing I think they might need from like a Cat this series is like the willingness to sacrifice at a pretty high level. And then when you are in there, like the whatever like things they give him, whatever things they want him to focus on when he is in there, be aggressive and like be your best self when that happens. So like that is literally number one, because I don't see like the way in which aligning the way they've aligned defensively is going to work. I don't see that being the case. Phoenix might not shoot as great. Like Phoenix gets a lot of good shots. So a lot of games they will shoot great.
Yeah, I think it's worth just noting on this point of some people are thinking right now, like they should for sure do that. I don't think, and I think you'd back me up here, that that's not really in Finch's DNA, or this team's DNA and how they've done it this season. Really, since they've gotten Rudy, they've been committed. You could argue even overly committed at times to like playing the starting 5. Not just to start games, but to close games. It has been exceedingly rare in 2 seasons that they've messed with any of this. I think the case becomes stronger to mess with it if Cat also can't give you anything offensively, which happened on Sunday in that game. Again, contextualizing, Cat came back for game 81, game 82, hasn't given them much offensively in those 2 games. Should we be anticipating that as the likely outcome for the playoff series? Probably not. But I say that to mean if Cat continues to struggle offensively, not be able to be as helpful as they need him to be, then maybe I think that's where you get to that point later down the line of making real adjustments. But let's talk about the Cat on the offensive side of the ball in this. I mean, I think the defensive part is really important, but I think the offensive part is huge too. Cat has to have a purpose and be a threat and hurt Phoenix in this, if not just for his own individual production to go up. I don't know how without Cat doing that, the Wolves are going to be able to unlock Ant to do more. It was extremely clear in the last two matchups against the Suns that they were so loaded up on Ant as much as they possibly could. Guy in the ball on Ant, someone in there to help if Ant drives left in the gap, someone there on the right side, and Cat needs to be the threat to change that so that Ant isn't just totally blockaded in his path to the basket. He's going to have to do that probably against KD. They are going to match it. How it's looked is they've been really intentional about trying to put Kevin Durant on Cat as much as possible. Obviously to start the game when Nurkic is out there, but also in the Cat at the 5 minutes. Phoenix really wanted to have Durant out there so as Cat wasn't being guarded by Drew Eubanks, which we know that is the number one place where Cat cooks is when he's at the 5 playing against backup 5s. What do you think Cat can do against KD in this matchup? Or I guess, what does he have to do?
Yeah, it's funny. Like you and I always like look at how teams align and we're like, bad coach, bad coach. Like Frank Vogel, like it's a pretty good game plan. The things they do are what compromises Minnesota the most or takes away the things that are easy for Minnesota. That is what they do with like the way they match up, the way that they scheme for certain guys. I don't know. Like it's tough in that it like posting up Cat, like I don't know, like maybe that's just never something that I think is like I think that just bogs down the offense a lot.
I think it's got to happen, man.
Yeah, but I understand that that's where the advantage is, I guess. But then like we will probably see some doubles and like pressing and making good decisions out of it consistently
Sure.
to make Phoenix switch something up out of it or like continue to punish it. But going to something that you have been so anti all year, and I think partially for good reason,
Sure.
is I just feel like that's not in like what they do offensively or what they want to do offensively.
I agree with that. I just watched them not. I mean, nothing else was really creating advantages for them because
Yeah.
when you are loaded up on like they're doing the boxes and elbows thing, right? As
Yeah,
much as
yep.
possible, just
That we
jamming
used
it
to
all
see
in there.
for Cat at the perimeter,
Yeah, for sure.
up top, and now it's for Ant. It's like
And for
maybe
Rudy,
even
I
times
say
two.
that like they're gonna hold the tags, the roll
Mhm.
him on the roll there. Like there's just
Super aggressive with him on the roll. Super aggressive.
and that's easier to do if you're boxed in. And
Yeah.
obviously, like so Cat just being a spacer is, or in the pick and pop or moving out and finding that space and just creating more space is more important than like getting him, post touches. I'm just saying that's a way in which they get them in rotation because particularly if
Yeah.
Cat has a small, like not KD on him, they're going to come double that, then then you just get the ball. You look for cutters right there. You get the ball moving. Okay, here's Ant on the second side. Here's Mike Conley in the other corner, whatever it might be. You know me, I'm not like a fan of 12 Cat post-ups in a game either, but I think that's a place where he can create an advantage. But I think the most important thing is having him space and as much as possible, keeping him one pass away from Ant. Can you
Yeah.
can you be one pass away? Because then that gap help from Cat's defender cannot come all the way in on Ant. And then Ant, if he does draw him in, okay, kick it to Cat. Cat, you have to shoot that. That's not a pump. That's not anything. That is a first quarter. They help on Ant, kick to you. You are shooting that. Force them to stay home. That's where the biggest advantage I think is created, and that's just based on Cat's skill set. You create a shifted defense advantage with Cat by finding him in the post against smalls. But historically, that has not been good. Cat against doubles in the post. That's totally a fair pushback there.
Yeah, the I agree with you. Like when Ant's up top, if they're all like pushing in, like on the wings, it should probably be Cat and Mike Conley. And you have your two best shooters like right there as like hey, maybe we just settle for a lot of these threes and maybe we knock a fair amount down because those are good looks for those two guys. And maybe they either have to adjust to open things up for Ant, or we just try to kill him from three all night. I think if I'm the Wolves, maybe that's what I'm thinking. It's just like an easy thing of like, if you're going to stack up against Ant, we will just have our two best 3-point shooters fire away. You know, and then like in the post up, I agree that it can work, like, because the biggest thing is how do you get Ant on those like second side looks where he catches the ball and can go off the catch without like a defense stacked against you. The biggest thing for that, and here's why Cat struggles so much with it, he always looks to pass to an assist. Like he's always like, where's the open guy on the second side that I can swing it over to, that they'll get it open three and I can get the assist here. Like it is often as easy as they doubled straight down from you or whatever, make the one pass back out and then just get the ball in rotation. Just get it in rotation from there. Like you aren't passing to the assist, you are passing to likely the hockey assist. And you've got to be okay with that, and you've got to do it again and again and again. That's what like a lot of the best post players do when they get doubled.
Absolutely. That's a great point. The Cat needs to be a passer for movement, not just a passer for assist. The cutters, right? Like if you do get Cat in the post, you kind of like step back out to 18 feet and you square up and Jaden cuts down the middle. Like, sure, obviously you want assists.
Yes.
But that movement we're talking about, breaking the Phoenix's shell defense, getting Ant in situations where he can tack against a shifted defense, that just comes with being a mover for the sake of being a mover. Ant obviously ties into all of this too. Grab our first break and then move over to Anthony Edwards on the offensive and defensive side of the ball too. But first, today's show is brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company. And on Friday, we are going to be at Falling Knife Brewing Company doing another one of our live shows. I'm going to be there with Britt Robson, and Kyle Tigey is going to be in town as well. I would say, get there early at 6 o'clock, kind of do a happy hour, meet and greet, whatever, while we're sort of setting up from 6 to 7. And then at 7 p.m., we will do a live show. And I think there will be a play-in game that is going on that evening as well. Obviously, we want to show you Falling Knife for the live show. So that can be a place that you consider going for these playoff games for the Wolves throughout the playoffs. So that's Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. Also this week, they got trivia on Wednesday and Thursday too, if you want to go over there earlier this week to watch maybe some of the other play-in games as well. And then also quickly, Jace, today's show is also brought to not just you, but all listeners by Prize Picks. And I did notice when I was looking at it this morning, they do have some Wolves numbers up for game one against the Suns. I just was scrolling. I was like, wow, karl-Anthony Towns only 28 points, rebounds, and assists, more or less, in game one. They have really lowered his numbers there. I haven't really had the chance to look at this too much, but just for listeners, if you do want to go and put together a Prize Pick slate for game one of the Wolves Suns, they do have Wolves numbers up there. But what I was doing was just looking at two Prize Picks for today's game, the play-in game, the Tuesday play-in games, which are the Pelicans Lakers and the Kings Warriors. I went with a 3-and-D role player slate here. Herbert Jones, more than 16.5 points plus rebounds plus assists, and Keon Ellis, more than 15.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. I think these type of players are extremely important in this type of atmosphere. So if nothing else, I think you'll see both of those guys on the floor in this matchup a lot. So give me those two guys. Again, that's prizepicks.com, Prize Picks app, promo code Day. Did you have any, Jace?
I did I put LeBron over 9 assists.
9 assists? Okay,
as like mine. He's gone over that number quite a bit recently. I think he had, it was like some insane number against the Pelicans on Sunday.
Yeah, I saw that.
Click on that little graph thing
right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 17 assists. 17 assists on Sunday. I don't know why they wouldn't try to follow whatever game plan they executed on Sunday in this playing game. So at least 10 seems like a good bet.
Sure. No, I like that a lot. Again, this is a fun way to play daily fantasy for these play-in games. Check out Prize Picks for the playoffs, and if you do create an account, you'll get a $100 sign-up bonus using the promo code Dane. All right, Jace, let's keep moving on here with this Wolves Suns series. Cat, obviously a big part of it. effectively reintegrating him, finding effective ways for him to play on the offensive and defensive sides of the floor. This is kind of a continuation of the Cat offensive part, I think, is the Ant offensive part. And talking about the Suns shell defense that has really worked well against Anthony Edwards twice in the last 2 weeks of the regular season when they lost to Phoenix. How many answers do you think the Wolves have to sort of break that defense and to get Anthony Edwards rolling?
I mean, you know what? Like listening to like Mike Conley after the game, he was like, "Yeah, we got to get more shots," but like I think in that moment he was like, "But if they're choosing to take them away, like we got to go to other things, basically." Like, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like they are largely like leaving a bunch of guys one pass away or whatever open. And it's like you can't just attack that. Like it cannot the initial action, like Ant can't just like be hyper aggressive and go at it. You know, like it's gotta be like get off the ball, maybe run some actions for him where he's not starting the play and he's coming off screens, whatnot. Like
Sure.
and those are different ways you can get it to him, but like it can't just be like dribble, 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 go at it, because that's not gonna work. Like it's gonna be super inefficient. And like I know like playoff Ant has been like a big thing, and I agree with that. He's been tremendous. He brings like for any big game, generally he brings his game up to like a different level. But Phoenix knows that, and that's why Phoenix is committing so many resources to it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I can't think until like the second half, maybe of Game 5, to where Denver finally seemed to maybe compromise like just what they do defensively to take the ball out of Ant's hands.
No,
I kind of think they
totally
stuck
right.
to their base otherwise, and then Ant was able to go off in those other games.
Yeah, I mean, I just to the what I also put in the email to you is like, what level of special can Ant get to? Because to his credit, at 20 years old against Memphis, he reached a really special level in the playoffs. He did last year against Denver too. What I've been saying on here for a while is what's changed is he is number 1 on the scouting report, number 2 on the scouting report, and number 3 on the scouting report from an offensive standpoint. And that's about how many bodies they're showing him every single time. 3, and so just to that point, whether you are, I mean, whatever, choose anybody from the all NBA teams that Ant is going to be on. If they're showing a primary and 2 help defenders consistently, that guy, whoever it is, Ant, Jalen Brunson, Jason Tatum, whoever, like that guy is got to get off of that. When teams even double Jokic, like it becomes a question of how good that is, because that should be an advantage, right? You put the 2 on them and you get off of it in an effective way, and you find your teammates. Ant has to do some of that too, but at the same time, I think if you're the Wolves, you can't let Phoenix guard him that way too, because you do need Ant to reach some level of special in this as well, and that's why I go back to Cat, and I go back to the 3-point shooters around Ant. If you do get Cat going, if you do get Mike or Jaden or Nikhil or whatever to hit a couple of threes because their man is in so much to help, they will adjust. They're not gonna just play 48 minutes of completely focused on Ant if the others are scoring. So to me, it starts with, and in the first quarter of Game 1, what I'm going to be looking for is like, can the 4 other guys that start around Ant get something going that forces Phoenix to at least somewhat adjust their defense to not be able to put Ant in the situation that he was on Sunday, where he only took 7 shots. And I think, and I know you'd back me up here too, that to make that any of that happen, it starts with body and ball movement. If you want to get Ant loose, you got to move, and you got to move the ball. This team has been bad at that this season. It's been good at it at times. Largely, it's struggled to be good at it when both Cat and Ant are on the floor, the ball and body movement. But it's just a must in this series. Don't do that, you lose. I think it's pretty much that simple.
Yeah, it's like Phoenix is able to take advantage of its matchup advantages because it's constantly getting Minnesota on the move, or it's using those advantages to get Minnesota on the move. And like in the last 2 games, especially on Sunday, like Minnesota didn't use its matchup advantages to compromise Phoenix's defense hardly at all. It's got to be crisp. It's got to be quick decisions. Like it's got to be like, even Cat is still doing too much ball holding. Like I'm sure all week they will sit here and like rep Ant going up against like these these like stacked defenses, these stacked help, the guys in on the elbows. I'm sure that will be like, here's what we do, here's what we do, here's what we do. But it really does involve everybody being crisp. Like, it's not even just Ant. It's like, if he gets off of it, okay, if you make that pass over to Mike or Cat, like, they are ready to shoot it.
Yep.
Like, Cat needs to hit a far higher level of like Naz Reid, I catch and shoot the ball. And he's still like, I think that's still very much a process for him. Mike, I think, is pretty comfortable with it, but like, and then it's like, okay, if they do somehow close out on you, okay, well then make the next pass, keep the ball moving, whatever. And then like, if you ran like pick and roll stuff, especially with like an Ant, they probably just blitz it really heavily.
They kind of just like put the second guy there and they just do a wall.
Yeah.
They're just like, we want you to get off the ball. You can try and run through us, but we're right next to each other. Like,
right.
It becomes like a sliding. Yeah. I mean, that's the shell, right? Like, it's the aggressive part of the shell. Like, they want Ant off the ball. And it's like, and Rudy would like slip behind Nurkic sometimes. He'll just kind of be like pretty wide open at like 9 feet. Like, but if you're Ant, are you gonna like, do I want to throw that over the top?
Yeah,
and
right.
Rudy's here at 9 feet.
It's almost like the guy who's like in the corner or whatever has to slide up to the top of the floor and maybe get an open three from that. Like,
it's and that's the body movement, right? It's like, okay, here they come. They're up on Ant. If I'm Rudy, what are me and Jaden doing right here to create some sort of exchange? The cuts. I mean, like first quarter cuts. I think that's really big. Provided they match up in a similar way against them. On the defensive side of the floor with Ant, again, played Phoenix twice in the last 2 weeks. They put him on Kevin Durant in both of those matchups. Kind of got off of it in both times because it wasn't working well. Seems like that's where they want to go. Is the KD matchup right for Ant? Ant guarding Kevin Durant.
I think I would have him on Devin Booker. Just because I think like Ant is your best defender as far as like really like muscling somebody away from whatever they want to do, like, and not letting them get to any spot. Like, I think I would go with Jaden on KD and Ant on Booker. Okay. That's where I just like physicality on Booker and maybe length on KD. But I understand that physicality on KD helps too. I don't know. I just think of any million. I know, right? I don't think there's really a wrong answer there. I don't think like putting Ant on KD is wrong necessarily, but Ant, I mean, KD is just taller than Ant, like, so he will probably like and he's comfortable from pretty much shooting anywhere on the court. And like, and when they do match up, like Ant makes it tough on KD. It's not like there's a bunch of easy looks, but yeah, that's how I would flip it. But I understand either one, frankly.
Maybe this is a way to continue talking about KD, and you mentioned it earlier, the Clippers versus Suns thing, which is a good question. I mean, the Wolves somehow would have drawn the Clippers in the first round. Like the series odds would be significantly more in the Wolves' favor than these are, because the Wolves look great against the Clippers this season. Beat them 3 times, and the one time they lost to them, they lost by 1. They look like they had answers for the Clippers, and I think like, just on paper, when we think about the Clippers and Suns and don't really peel it back at all, you go, all right, 3 primary scorers on both of them, and go to the Clippers matchup. You're like, Wolves got 3 guys to be able to guard them, and they did. They made it really hard for Paul George and James Harden, and even Kawhi at times in there too. But it has looked so different against Phoenix, and I think it's a good question of why are those so different? And I think the answer, Jace, is just that it's another level. KD, Booker, and Beal as individual scorers, particularly from the mid range, are on another level than those 3 guys. Obviously, we think about Kevin Durant first and foremost. I was looking it up. Only 2 players in the league have shot over 200 long mid-range shots this season and made over 50% of them. Joel Embiid took 232 and made 51% of them, and Kevin Durant took 383 and made 52% of them.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, he is the best mid-range player in the NBA. Numbers bear that out. That number isn't a blip. It's happened previously in his career, but it's all of them. It's also Booker is a guy who Durant took 26% of his shots from long mid-range this season. Booker shot 23% of his shots from long mid-range this season. Only 9 players in the league shot over 20% of their shots from long mid-range. This is the most voluminous long mid-range team, and they have some of the best guys at it. And Beal's up there too. He's taken 16% of his from long mid-range. They love that part of the floor, and they do it effectively. It's on another level than Paul George and Kawhi and Harden. They shoot them more often than those 3 guys, and they make them more often than those 3 guys on the Clippers do. And that's the difference. That's why the Wolves defense needs to be on an even higher level than it was against the Clippers in those 3 games, because as isolation, pull up, square you up, whatever, those shots that you normally give, the Suns want those, and they make them, or they have this season largely. They'll probably have one game. It's why, like, there's a 0% chance it'll be a sweep, because one game they'll miss all of them, right?
Right.
And the Wolves are gonna win that game. But I think that's my answer to that question of why the Clippers and Suns are different, because the Suns team is significantly better than the Clippers are in those mid-range opportunities.
Yeah, and I would say even at the 5, like, Nurkic is so much more skilled of an offensive player than like Zubac is. And I think that makes a big difference. Like, Nurkic is, like, oddly just like a really nice facilitator in their offense and what they do, and like getting yes, a really good passer of like taking advantage of, oh, you good cut by you, or let's get you the ball here, like, and that just makes it even tougher to guard as Phoenix is moving. Like, when Nurkic can kind of be that centerpiece and he has room to operate, because Rudy's not going to like hug up too tight to him, in that 15 to 18 foot range. So like, room to operate, got clear vision, good passer, all that stuff. But like, it just adds another layer to it. Here's like KD and Booker. If you remember, like, they won 2 games against Denver last year in the second round. Like, I know, like, it's the and I think rightfully so, like, Minnesota pushed Denver the most. But here are the guys that they played with in that series. There's KD and Booker. The third best player was DeAndre Ayton, who like was not a good fit on that team either, and was in foul trouble all the time with Jokic. And then the other 2 starters were Josh Okogie, who's not in the rotation, and Cam Payne, who is a very minimal minutes. The guys off the bench, TJ Warren. Hey, shout out Wolves. Jacques Landale, Landry Shamet, played a little bit for Washington this year, and Terrence Ross, who's not in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like, it was those 2 guys and a bunch of other guys. And now they have the rotation that has Grayson Allen, Nurkic, who Beal. Brad Beal is the big one. That's pretty big. Because Chris Paul got hurt in game 1 of that Denver series. Brad Beal and Grayson Allen, and then Nurkic, who, like, you can say whatever between Aiden and Nurkic, but I would say that Nurkic is probably a better fit with Phoenix. And then you've got, your Royce O'Neals, your Eric Gordon, who didn't even play on Sunday. You've got like so many good options around them that, like,
at least, yeah.
This roster is significantly improved from last season, like significantly better. But we've already seen what like Booker and Durant can do against the best team in the NBA last year in the playoffs. So like, they're dangerous. Like, there's no doubt about it. I think like even at full strength, they might have been a more dangerous playoff out than the Clippers.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, as I'm sitting here right now, I think this couldn't happen, but the worst first round matchup would be the Nuggets, right, for the Wolves, even though the Wolves have matched up pretty well against them. And then
just because you think they're the best team.
Yeah. Just because of that. Like, that would be the series that they would be, underdogs in even more than they are in this one. But as we're seeing, like, I think if the Wolves and Thunder somehow match up in whatever, I guess
the West Finals,
it would be the West Finals. I guess it would depend on what rhythm those teams are in and stuff, but it might even be like the Wolves are favored.
I think the Wolves will probably be favored.
That's what I'm saying. So
maybe
it's
close,
like the Suns and the Nuggets, at least in terms of the perception out there, which would also echo my opinion, is that Denver and Phoenix are the 2 toughest. And the reason that, Phoenix is because of this. It's because of those 3 with some depth around them. It's not like, and I know that's not what you were saying. You're not saying Phoenix has a better bench than the Wolves do. The Wolves are the best bench.
No, I'm just saying it's far more competent than it was last season when they were winning games then anyway.
Exactly. And I think that's that's an important part of this. To the Nurkic point, I think what makes him a weapon in this, that what makes him not a weapon is I'm not really worried about him scoring in isolation and going through Gobert in ways that like Sabonis has this season, or even, you know, Jokic when Gobert is guarding him one-on-one, Zion when he's guarded him situationally one-on-one. Like, I'm not worried about Nurkic hurting the Wolves as a one-on-one score. Maybe on the glass, a little bit offensive glass, pushing Gobert and getting offensive rebounds and scoring again. But it is as a passer, and it is with Nurkic at the top of the key, right? You don't have to guard Nurkic out there to shoot threes. Like, you're cool with that. But he's weird in that Gobert has to be up in coverage all the time when Nurkic is out there, not to guard the three, but to guard the dribble handoff, right? Because, which goes back to the long mid-range thing. If Rudy, you know, is guarding Nurkic like he guards Aaron Gordon and is just, you know, drop back to the, you know, the nail or even in the lane, like they're just going to run a dribble handoffs for Booker, Beal, Durant, whatever, to just come off of that and pull. So Rudy has to be up there against Nurkic because Nurkic is good at the dribble handoffs. And even if there isn't a dribble handoff screen or anything, he's a good passer from up there. And Rudy needs to kind of pressure him as a passer. Otherwise, he'll move it there. I'm curious to see how impactful Nurkic is in this series. And I respect those things from his game, but it's really down the list for me. Nurkic is down the list of like, yeah, if you're getting killed by Nurkic in this series, like, okay, like then you lost. I just don't think that will happen. And two, it's just not a primary area of focus for the team. He's also even more like foul prone than Cat is. Like, you know, we always looked at, you know, Cat being one of the league leaders in fouls. I just know from having looked at that year after year, Nurkic is always right up there with him. And Sunday's game is an example, just consistent foul trouble, which forced Drew Eubanks and Thad Young to play a bunch there too. Nurkic is the best option they have there. He was a plus 27 on Sunday in just 20 minutes. But there's certainly, you know, there's flaws to his game there as well. The question is just, is he helping the others, right? Is he helping those guys, the big three, get to their shots and be a better scorer there? He's I would say Grayson Allen is the fourth best player, wouldn't you? And Nurkic is the fifth. I mean, not that, whatever.
It's really close. Yeah. But I would totally say that it is that the offense just runs most smoothly when Nurkic is out there. And I agree with you on the foul trouble thing. Like, that's a big problem. So that's why I think it's key that Minnesota takes advantage of that and gets him off the court, because like when you get Thad Young or Drew Eubanks out on the court, like now you have a bad player. Not like, not to say like, oh, he sucks, but like you don't have a good player on the court anymore. Like, you would not say like Drew Eubanks is anything above like a replacement player. You would not say Thad Young is anything above a replacement player. So now it's easier to hide. It's easier to scheme. It's easier to do all of these things. We didn't get Nurkic off the court, which you can do via foul trouble. So that's you will see a lot of in the first half, because they both do this. Like, Nurkic and Gobert are two of the biggest pushers on the glass that you'll see in the NBA, and then you'll see the other one like flailing, trying to get the calls, and seeing who wins out in terms of like who draws more calls. The difference is Nurkic gets them a lot more just playing defense as well, so he's more likely to stack them up. I think Nurkic is like I think if they can get him off the court, that is a pretty big piece, frankly, in my mind. But I also think like, if assuming Aaron Gordon is back, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Phoenix plays a lot more minutes of like KD at the 5, and then out there with like your Gordon, Allen, Beal, Booker. Like, if Nurkic gets in foul trouble, like for stretches of the game, and maybe even close with that. Like, I think they might go hyper small at various points as well. Minnesota has shown that they can expose that at certain points, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Phoenix pulls that out of their bag.
Well, that's what I want to go to next is Gobert in this series and the question of Phoenix potentially going small. I asked Rudy about that after the game on Sunday. Start by playing that clip.
Nurkic was they fouled trouble tonight, but they still played a center pretty much the entire time. This team goes real small, moves the center off completely in the playoffs against you guys. What's the key there?
You gotta play big. You gotta play big and use it. You know, that's one of our strengths. So they want to play to their strength. We gotta also play to our strength. You know, and find ways to impact them with our size. You know, I think that's what makes us unique. So gotta use it.
What are some of those ways that maybe you didn't get to tonight?
I think a lot of it is spacing, also mindset. You know, guys really like wanting to play big, get where they need to get to play big, and just play big.
So, Jace, on Sunday, Nurkic plays 20 minutes. He's a plus 27 in those minutes. In the non-Nurkic minutes before garbage time, the Wolves won those by 7 when it was Thad Young or Drew Eubanks at center. And honestly, like, I think they'll win that by a lot. Like, that looks like an area they can win that if it's a different center out there. I'm confident in that. I think the question is, like, was Phoenix saving Durant at the 5? You know, and then also, is that as good of an idea as they think it is if they're saving it? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I do think that it's something they're probably more comfortable doing if Eric Gordon's out there, because he is very comfortable playing physical and pushing around and whatever and being like the quote unquote 4 in those lineups. But also, I don't know. I think it's something, if I was them, I would have to try. And then, but at the same time, like, it's something that Minnesota has shown they can punish when they play well, like when they move the ball well, when they are decisive about like when to take advantage of those opportunities, those types of things. So like Minnesota can, like against like the Clippers and whatnot, like they've shown like, okay, here we're going to be decisive. We're going to put the ball off the glass. We're going to whatever. But it's your spots. Minnesota's shown they can do that. So I think that Phoenix has to try it, and I think Minnesota can certainly take advantage if they play the right way. It's all about moving the ball. It's all about all of these things. It's about attacking lanes. Like when Minnesota gets stuck, when they get stagnant, then it looks awful. But when they play basketball the right way, then like it's like, yeah, you can't play small against us.
My instinct is to say it's not going to hurt the Wolves as much as probably a lot of people out there think. I mean, it's been tried against the Wolves this season. Not like it's had zero impact. I remember one Clippers game, it worked well in the fourth quarter. The Wolves still, won that game. I didn't realize it live, but they did go to that to close. It was the last 41 seconds of the second quarter. It's kind of like when the game was most close. Remember, it was like right when Beal and Ant got into it the second time, like at the free throw line. Royce O'Neal came into the game then, and they went small there. So I thought they didn't go to it at all. I just missed that watching it
that was
live.
Probably for like a full offensive possession, I'm guessing, and then like one possession of defense.
So I think it was an offensive possession first, then that Ant possession where Ant gets the and one on Beal or gets fouled by Beal.
3 seconds left or something.
And then it was another one there. But I only say that to mean they went to it, and they went to it in arguably the highest leverage point of that game, specific to Sunday, which I think leads me to believe they will try to go to that at some point in this series. Again, I don't know if it's something I would do if I were them. I think the Wolves seem like a team that you should do that more against than maybe it would actually be profitable for. Because I just think the Nurkic at the 5 and KD at the 4 thing is already problematic enough, almost in a way that I feel like hurts the Wolves more, because now it's Cat, plus like Cat is the 4 and KD's there, plus Nurkic is physical. Like, I don't know. It'll be an interesting thing to track in this series. And like Rudy said, they have to play big and they have to not shy away from that. They need to beat that when Phoenix does it. I think it's going to come, and I don't know. Like, I'm not like confident the Wolves are going to win the series per se, but like I'm pretty confident that that's not going to be as good for Phoenix as they might think it is.
Yeah, I definitely think like the way Nurkic has been impactful for Phoenix in these matchups. Like, so I do think that will be their go-to. And I really do think that the 5 small is just going to be kind of a counter for if and when Nurkic gets in foul trouble. I really
just don't do the Eubanks and Young thing again. Like the Thad Young thing was terrible.
I think that will probably be their idea, is like, no, let's go with one of these. Let's go small versus having to play Thad Young, who's already kind of small anyway. Let's go small instead of playing Drew Eubanks. Like, Eubanks will play some in the series, but like I think that'll be the counter to that versus like their go-to of like, let's win the game with this.
Right. Nurkic picked up his.
You
Go
can't
ahead.
go small just because like Ant, like I think if your whole thing is like let's limit Ant, let's take Ant away. When you go small, even driving through a crowd, Ant is so much more confident of like there's nobody at the rim
Mhm.
that can actually stop me. Like I'm going to push through everybody and get there. Like you mentioned, like that
That's
and
a good
one.
point.
It's not like they didn't pinch out on the elbows there, but like
Yeah,
when
he
there is
wasn't.
no shot blocker, like Ant is just like goes
Mhm.
into hyperdrive of like, oh, I'm getting to the rim here.
No, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that too. That one Ant specific possession. I do think it's worth noting. Gobert had 15 points in the third quarter on Sunday. Nurkic picked up his fourth foul 3 minutes in to the third quarter, and then Rudy, all of his buckets. He was 4 for 5 from the field and made 7 free throws in the third quarter, and 3 of those 4 makes were and ones, and they were all on Thad Young or Drew Eubanks. They're like, I guess we got to see if Rudy can eat against KD at the 5 or what. However they align, maybe they put like Royce O'Neal on Rudy in that
Possible.
spot, but he killed Eubanks and Young in the third quarter against the smaller look against the Suns. So a lot of people are going to be talking about Phoenix going small in this series and that being a real advantage for them. That's what happened on Sunday when they went smaller. And my instinct isn't to say that's the number one thing that's going to be able to break the Wolves here. Let's wrap this up with Conley. Mike had an awesome game offensively on Sunday. He had 17 points, 5 of 7 shooting, 4 of 5 from 3, 1 of 2 from 2. You're confident in Mike playing smart. He had a handful of turnovers, but so did everybody in that game. I'm not really worried about Mike on the offensive side of the floor. I think we're going to see that impact. The Beal matchup for him is tough. They put him on Bradley Beal. They put Cat on Allen. They put McDaniels on Booker. They put Ant on Durant, and they put Gobert on Nurkic. So that was the matchup. Was Conley on Beal? I think you can craft an argument if you don't want Cat on Allen and you think the best thing is Cat on KD. Part of the argument is you could then put Conley on Grayson Allen, Conley is the best at chasing shooters on this team, and then maybe you shift things around otherwise with McDaniels and Ant on Beal and Booker, however you choose to match that. How are you just thinking about Mike in this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think him on Beal like all game is tough. Like that's a big ask. I think, like especially if you want to play like 36 minutes or something in these playoff series, like 36 a night. So like he can do it for stints, but like Bradley Beal will have a physical advantage in that matchup. Like, and it's not even like it's really not like a post up type thing because even like Booker tried to post up Conley a few times and that doesn't work. Like Mike's a really good post up defender, but like if you get any type of advantage on him where you can attack him like off the bounce, like now you're looking at something where like, okay, Mike's going to have to get kind of desperate with the hands to try to win with that. Otherwise you're going to get to the bucket and maybe even get like an and one. And that's something like Beal's comfortable doing, something like Booker's comfortable doing.
Happened a lot on Sunday.
Yeah, like it's totally like asking Mike to defend like off the bounce as he's recovering, those types of things. Like that's tough, especially like when you don't have any type of size advantage to bother somebody, and somebody who's playing as well and as confident as Brad Beal right now. So I think that would be a long series for Mike if he's asked to cover Brad Beal for most of his minutes out there every game.
Rudy's got to be watching that, and I said I get why he's up on Nurkic a little bit more there, but I think Rudy's got to kind of play that balance of two of like, yes, I don't want Nurkic to get into some easy, there's those maddening things like, oh my God, Gobert was too low. Booker comes down and just hits this. Durant just peels off it and hits it. Like you don't want that. There's something crushing about that, like drop coverage style of defense. But if I'm Rudy, I'm trying to be up when I can, but I see Bradley Beal against a shifted defense, and he's only got one guy to beat. Mike Conley drop. You got to be back there. I think a lot of that is on Gobert to be both a helper and keeping Nurkic off the glass and contesting mid-range shots. Like a ton of this is about Gobert's ability to do numerous things in this series defensively, which I kind of feel like he can do. You know, I mean, you're not going to get all of those, but like that doesn't sound crazy to think that Rudy can handle all of that. I
mean,
think he just needs to be better at it.
This is like a thing where you're a max player. You're
Yeah.
a max player on the defensive side of the ball. Whereas, yes, can't do a lot of things on the offensive side of the ball. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of responsibilities. And like, this is kind of your time to show like, oh, I actually like all the playoff defensive narratives about me like are wrong. And this is like the ultimate test of like, guess what? Like if Phoenix wins this series in 6 games and they didn't have much problem scoring, like everybody's going to point and be like, see, told you. Rudy Gobert can't be a part of like a championship level playoff defense. Doesn't matter if like it was the worst matchup. I think everybody's narrative will be, well, there's always going to be a bad matchup somewhere along the way in the playoffs. You know, some team that can go to that look and you can't beat it. So yeah, like Gobert is going to have to be super versatile. He's going to have to be aware of a lot of things. He's going to have to try to cover up as many things as possible because like this is why you make a lot of money. This is why they traded so much for you. Like this is your time to step up on that end of the court and dominate against a matchup where it doesn't seem likely that you can. Like it really, this is kind of that moment for Rudy, I think.
No, I think that's a great point, and it's both sides of the ball too. I mean, we talked about what he did in the third quarter. You know, punish teams if they go small. That's what you didn't do in Utah, right? That's what you, not just him, but Utah as a whole was not able to punish that on their side. Does Rudy need to get 15 points and 3-and-1s in those spots? No, it just needs, you need to make Phoenix not feel comfortable with Royce O'Neal on him, and then defensively, Rudy needs to disrupt. He needs to be a disruptor of Beal, Booker, and Durant. It's not every possession because that's not his primary, but taking the right risks, negotiating the right space between helping and, you know, playing and guarding Nurkic in his actions. You talked to Mike. I don't know what that was, maybe last week for your most
last
recent.
week. Yep.
Okay. So if you aren't familiar, Jace and Mike Conley kind of have like a bi-weekly one-on-one story that Jace writes every other week, getting Mike's perspective on whatever the topic is for this week, just kind of as a way to plug it. But there's also some interesting stuff in there. What stood out to you about Conley Corner this week?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was like Mike going to Memphis for Marc Gasol's retirement and jersey retirement, and then all the guys talking about like, oh man, like we had a squad, like we could have done this and this and that, and Mike being like, kind of coming away from it being like, but we didn't, you know, like, and not wanting to, and guarding against having those same regrets here, and realizing that like this year they have a chance to do something. Like as bad as you feel even about like, and this was before their matchup with Phoenix, but like as bad as you feel about this matchup, like this team won 56 games. This team has a lot of, this is the deepest team in the NBA probably, or right there with Boston, as far as like 1 through 9, like how good you are. Like you've got 3 max players. You've got maybe the best defensive player in the NBA. You've got like a really rising superstar. Like now is the time. Like this is the time for urgency. This is exactly the message he delivered at the beginning of the season. Like now is the time. Like this is it. This is when to push. And he's kind of like giving that message again now as the playoffs start of like, this isn't like, oh, let's win one series and be happy type of thing. Like this is the urgency of like, it's time to go for it. And I think that message rings true because this might be the best roster they have for the foreseeable future. It's, you can't keep everybody with cap situations and whatnot, like, and people get older. This might be the best it ever gets. So now is the time to make the push.
And it is going to be the best it ever gets for Mike Conley. If we just, you know, factor in age and, you know, he'll be 37 next year. That's in like all likelihood, probably a step down in production of what he can do. Right.
It's always so funny. Like he is in the same draft class as KD, and yeah, like KD's next year, KD will be a superstar. Yeah.
But even this is just kind of like an aside. You're just watching a bunch of KD yesterday.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Like KD isn't, you know, this is probably aged poorly. KD just comes out and has an awesome series, but I'll just say for me watching him this season, it's like, yeah, KD is not what he was when he was even in Brooklyn a couple
I
years
think
ago.
the year
like,
in Brooklyn when they lost, the year in Brooklyn when they lost to the Bucks was like the best. I think like the last year of like elite KD in my mind.
Yeah, and he's still an absolute problem in this series, but it just age is a thing in this. It's this same thing where like LeBron is still one of the best players in the league, but he's more like a third team all NBA guy, you know, not like in the MVP conversation. And some of that just kind of falls off and specific to Mike, like that's probably starting to come even more so over the he signed the extension the next 2 years. Like, this is probably the best Mike Conley the Wolves are going to get, I guess, put it like that. And you factor in some of the salary cap stuff and keeping this group together. Like, yeah, in many ways, this could be the best group that that Ant maybe ever plays with, and there's, Ant's going to get better over the course of his career, but there's a real opportunity here. And I will say, like, I think they know that, Mike is quoted, I read the story, like saying they know that, but just from my sense of like the vibe of that all, like Rudy gets that too. He's entering something like that as well. I think Cat does. I really think Cat knows that, this in many ways has the opportunity to be a referendum for him, or if he struggles again, he knows that's probably, coming too. But there's a belief. There really is, I think, a belief in this group. And I go back to there hasn't been that many bad losses this season. But when I've gone into locker rooms after those, there hasn't been a crushing feeling pretty much after any game, because there's always sort of the belief and maybe a little bit of arrogance, but like that we would beat them if we played them again right now, if we rolled it out again and played. And I think, like, broadly, I think that's what this team feels with Phoenix right now. They know they got some problems in this matchup, but like, I think they really believe they have a team that, that can go. They have enough, right? Like, as Tibbs would always say, like, we have enough to win. Like, this team actually does have enough to win. It's about executing, and it's about being meticulous about all the other different things we talked about there. But yeah, for Mike Conley, I know he gets the stakes right here, and it's why I believe, he will do everything he can in this series. He will fight the Beal matchup, and I think he's gonna be really important, whether it's his individual offense or just getting the offense playing the way it needs to play. Like, Mike Conley is, I think, significantly more of an X factor in this series than maybe people outside of Minnesota would think.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
All right, this was good. I think we started digging into all of this with Wolves Suns for round one. Britt, Robson, and I will come back and do a little bit more on Wednesday morning. We'll also start having some media availability starting on Wednesday, so we'll be able to ask some more questions, talk about a little bit more of that. I'm not sure when practices or anything like that, but we'll have more stuff, more coverage, more specific to this matchup coverage coming in pods throughout the rest of the week with Britt on Wednesday, Chris Hine on Thursday, and then we'll do the live show on Friday. But Jace, this is a really good place to start it. Appreciate you doing it, man.
Always a pleasure, man. Looking forward to it. Let's get going.
Yes, sir. Check out Jace's Conley Corner article and just all of his coverage at the Pioneer Presser. You can do that by following him on Twitter at Jace Frederick. Until Wednesday at some point with Britt. He's Jace. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down.